If you've ever felt like your brain is big, you are clearly smart, but your life still feels a little bit stuck, this is for you, okay? I wrote an open letter about this called Being Smart is Making You Dumb for all my fellow wise gals who are great at thinking, but not always the best at moving forward. And I wanted to share it here in video form too. I'm Daneshé. I'm the founder of Studio Wellspring, which is a business and wellness coaching studio for ambitious mid-career women. And for my dear loyal readers, viewers of this semi-regular publication that we have going on here, you will have known that I recently made the choice to leave my corporate job as a big tech brand marketer to pursue entrepreneurship. And in my last piece, I unpacked some of the hopeful reflections that I've had about this season of my life, my wishes for the future, and who I want to be. And I still stand by all of it, everything I wrote, everything I said. But since hitting publish a few weeks ago, I've been reflecting even more, which is very on brand for me as an introspective 28-year-old woman, just on how someone who is so smart can feel so dumb on a day-to-day basis. And this is not self-deprecation. Like, I would like to anchor us all in the fact that I know I am a highly intelligent person, but yet in the face of my highest pursuits and open ambition, I've had these moments where I've felt completely paralyzed by the ambiguity of my current situation. Building a company sounds incredibly easy when you listen to the same girl boss content circuit that I do. You have the idea, you validate it, you push it out, it soars. Very simple, right? Wrong, Charlotte. Just wrong. In addition to being intelligent, one of my strengths is taking the ideas and the visions that pop up in my mind and wrestling with them and molding them until they become physical reality. It's how I've launched products and ventures in the past. And outside of my faith in God and his providence, it is the one thing that I am holding close to my chest as I walk further down this path of entrepreneurship in real time. I would say the pro of this trait, you have a track record. Right? You're not just a talker, you're an action taking lady. You're a builder, a doer. You can look back at your own personal history and see all of the things that you once felt confused about or felt insecure about. And then you can also see that you somehow found a way to accomplish them. The con, though, and there is a con, I'm going to call us back to my word choice, which is wrestling. You can start with one idea that feels like the right one, and then suddenly you just get tossed in a completely new direction, right? Your mind is always firing, you're always brainstorming and innovating, and none of that is bad. None of it is inherently wrong. I'm just starting to realize that we need somewhere to park the ideas. We need a way to prioritize them. Which ones are actually worth pursuing? Which ones do we want to park? And more importantly, why do we need to park them? Right? We're not going to dive into all of that today. Instead, we're going to focus on the topic at hand, which is unpacking why highly intelligent women are so prone to inaction and what you can do to avoid falling victim to this heuristic trap. This mental shortcut that tells our very smart brains that it's safer to wait and figure it out in a vacuum than it is to just start. And that takes us into chapter 1. Overthinking is a survival mechanism gone rogue. We often measure intelligence as an outsized ability to think critically and problem solve. And highly intelligent women can see every angle, every consequence, every edge case, sometimes before the scenario even happens. And this is great in school. It's wonderful in corporate, where problems are clearly outlined and there's usually a right answer or a right way of doing things. But in entrepreneurship and in personal decision making, absolutely paralyzing. And why? In school and in large corporations, being the person who can see all the risks and options is rewarded. You are lauded for it. You're getting the "you're so thorough" comments, or "so great that you thought of that, Lisa," right? Like, laying out pros and cons can easily become an entire assignment that takes up your whole day. And it's completely fine. You have teammates working on other pieces of the project, the organization is still moving forward, and nothing truly existential is ever at stake. The praise is the reward for your researching and your pondering. And when we translate this same behavior to our own lives, this thinking pattern turns a simple, should I launch this, into a 47 tab thought exercise. And instead of just putting a minimum viable version of a simple offer in front of real people to get real data, we sit on it because we can see 10 potential failure modes and 7 better versions of the same thing. But the gag is there's always going to be a better version of the thing that you're doing right now. That's why we iterate. We ship things knowing that we're going to put a better version of it out later. And in an attempt to keep you safe versus, say, an organization, your brain is always going to find a reason something could go wrong. So you have to hear that voice that is telling you that something's going to go wrong and just decide to do the thing anyway. When it comes to business, the marker of success is actually so simple. Did anyone give you money in exchange for the value you're offering them via your product or service? That's literally it. And intelligent brains are fabulous at running simulations, but simulations do not create evidence of success. Only action does. Smart women are great at mental chess. We can play out 12 moves ahead of our current situation in our minds, but building a life or a business is not a game of chess. At some point, you have to get off the board and pick up the hammer. You have to get to work. And when you are a grandmaster at mental chess, you also tend to chase another drug, which is more information. So in chapter 2, we're going to discuss the research trap. I'll move once I know enough. Dearest gentle viewer, I need you to know that I am not a hater. Okay, I'm not a hater. I love information. I love to read. I love to listen to podcasts. I love to take courses. I love information. And as high IQ women, which I so lovingly call HIWs, it is so easy to get addicted to understanding. Having our brains working overtime is our comfort zone, but that understanding often masquerades itself as progress. It's the thoughts like, I'm 60% of the way through this course, then I just need to take this next one. And once I do that, I'll know exactly what to do. Or I have 20 minutes left in this podcast. And, once I finish this episode, I'll get to work. And you can exchange that line of thinking for any miscellaneous advanced degree or certification that is not a mandatory prerequisite for the work that you need to get done. Learning feels familiar and it feels safe. What feels uncomfortable? Doing the simple but scary things. DMing someone you know or don't know about what you're doing. Hitting publish on a post. Asking for money, which is what you need to be in business, by the way. You can spend an entire afternoon building out a 5-year business plan, mapping every monetization pathway for your business or your Substack or your Instagram before you've tested a single scrappy offer or asked for money. The reality is, because of how you're wired, you probably know more about your subject matter than some of the people already selling it and turning a profit. And I'm just going to be blunt because I need us HIWs, us high IQ women, to understand this disconnect so we can adjust our behavior. In corporate and academic settings, the equation looks like this. More research leads to a better deck, which leads to more praise. But in your own work, the equation actually shifts to more research leads to more delay, which leads to more self-doubt. Growing into HIWs has trained us to believe that if we just learned a little more, we could guarantee a good outcome. We could make the dean's list, we could win the award, we could land the job or the promotion. Entrepreneurship and big personal goals do not work like this. You will never have certainty until you create it within yourself. You do not get guarantees or step-by-step instructions before you start to move. You get experiments, you get hypotheses, you get timelines, and you get data. And once you finally do sit down to act, another high IQ feature kicks in, which is standards. So chapter 3, perfection as protection, weaponized tough standards. One thing about HIWs, we are used to being good at things fast. And don't let it be something completely new to us or something that feels shaky. This is exactly where we step into avoidance or over polishing instead of shipping. A lot of this comes from the identities that we've built and then chained ourselves to. So I'm the girl who gets A's. I'm the reliable one. I'm the one who's great at presenting. When we step into environments where we're forced to be beginners again, those identity markers get flipped on their heads. Like, what do you mean I have to post something that isn't in its final form, that the entire world has the potential to see? What are you talking about? This often shows up in us drafting 6 versions of an Instagram bio, filling an entire notebook with a business plan and multiple outlines of a new offer, and then launching none of it. Many of us, I'm finding, don't feel the need to combat perfectionism because it looks good and it gets us results. The praise, the reputation of being a polished person who has her life together. But perfectionism is really just an elegant way of staying safe. It continues this narrative that if it's not out there, it cannot fail. And my identity as the smart, successful one stays intact. HIWs learn early that effort plus excellence equals love, safety, and approval. So when we're asked to do something that might not be excellent on the first try, our brain would rather stall than risk being witnessed by other people in this messy middle. But the truth is, most people could not even meet the bars that we're setting for ourselves, which is why we constantly feel like we're falling short. So right sizing the asks that we make of ourselves is a big piece of this developmental work that we're doing here. And on top of all of this, there is one more invisible tax that HIWs pay. We are very good at arguing against ourselves. And that takes us into chapter 4, sophisticated self-sabotage, arguing both sides of your own case. Being an articulate person means you have this ability to build an airtight case for why you should not do the thing that you know you actually want. Worse yet, if you were on a debate team, Model UN, some sort of pre-law program, pitch competitions, my goodness, you have an uncanny ability to ignore your inner voice, no matter how loud it gets about shifting you to a new path, simply because it defies your idea of logic. Your inner personal stagnation defense attorney says, Your Honor, my client cannot launch this because, and then that attorney lists off all the reasons: personal responsibilities, timing, money, job market conditions, readiness. And the wild part is every reason is partially true, which makes it feel extremely convincing. But your attorney's fatal flaw is that it ignores the cost of staying where you are. It also negates the fact that intangible things like sustained dread, low-grade resentment, and chronic low energy are actually tangible evidence of misalignment coming directly from the body. So please think about this before you let them bill you more hours. Thank you. I empathize with this deeply. I have prayed for clarity many times, with tears in my eyes, mind you, and then managed to talk myself out of every answer I got, all on a technicality. And I want you to know that smart does not have to mean stuck. But for a lot of us, no one has ever taught us how to let the subconscious inner dialogue of our minds be brilliant without letting it run the whole show. How do we fix it? Yes, I have in fact outlined the problems here in great detail because I want them to be clear. Clarity breeds action. So to move forward, you have to gently rebel against the smart girl within. You have to embrace what I call the small experiment. So I'm going to give you the first one. Experiment 1. You're going to do the 15-minute version, or the 10 or the 5. If you have a big goal, a lot of overwhelm, and not that much time, you're going to embrace tiny but meaningful actions. So every day, you're going to do one concrete thing that moves your desire forward. That could be sending the email, posting the post. You could outline the minimum viable version of your offer in a Google Doc and try to sell it to one person that you know. And you're going to do all of that before you open a new tab to research or study. So researching and studying becomes the reward for taking concrete action versus the prerequisite, which is usually how we treat it. And then you get bonus points if you do this. You can set one bigger goal for the week and then map out the micro actions that you will take each day to reach that goal. So that way you're never starting from zero each day and trying to figure out what it is you actually need to do. Then we have experiment 2. This is where you're going to check the evidence and not the thoughts. So when your personal stagnation defense attorney is giving a very compelling opening argument about why you can't do something or need to put it off for later, you're going to ask yourself, what have I actually tested? Not pondered, not journaled about, not talked in circles around. What have I put into the real world in front of real people with real cognition and real opinions with real consequences? Okay, what data do I have that isn't just bad vibes, negative feelings? Am I reacting to actual results or to imagined outcomes and old fears wearing a trench coat and a ski mask? I'm saying this because I really want you to sit with yourself here and be honest. No one is being meaner to you than your attorney is right now. Through it all, I want to invite you to just try. So, in closing, what is the way out of this high IQ paralysis loop? It's action. Unsexy, non-genius, very much inside of the box, just do the obvious thing, action. And not because you are suddenly going to feel ready, not because you've solved for every variable or every scenario, not because you've received this earth-shattering revelation, but precisely because your brain could happily think about this same thing for 3 more years and convince you that it's progress. And if you're listening to this and you're saying, thank you so much, Daneshé, but I still don't know what to do, I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to tell you the truth. You know exactly what to do. You're just afraid to do the thing that you already know is next, or you've decided is too simple to be the real solution. But the spoiler is that it is the real solution, okay? Momentum and clarity don't come from more thinking. They come from fighting through the fear and anxiety that you feel of stepping into a scenario that has more variables than guidelines, right? You feel your way through the dark, you take one step, and in that darkness, the next step appears, and then the next one, and the next one, until one day you look up and realize that you can actually see the outline of where you're heading. You can see the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel. Clarity comes from taking scary action and not a second before you do that. And the deeper I sit into these early stages of founder life, the more I believe that God reveals the next step after you take the first. I'm starting to believe that He gives us exactly what we need and nothing more, so we can become the person who can hold the next thing, the next gift, the next clue, the next download. I'm starting to believe there isn't one singular right action. Any positive next step that you can take and take consistently could be the very thing that aligns you with the path that God has for you sovereignly. So I know that is scary and it's confronting, but the comfort, if you are a smart lady who is just tired of outthinking and overthinking her own life, the comfort is this: someone knows the end from the beginning, even if it's not you. Is that not freeing? Your only job is to take that next honest step. And that brings us to the end of our essay for today. So thank you for listening. If you've made it to this point and you are just tired of trying to white knuckle those first steps towards better well-being or launching your own thing alone, this is the exact work that I do with my clients at Studio Wellspring, which is a business and wellness coaching studio for HIWs building serious ventures, which are the big visions for your work and your life that ask you to operate as your highest, truest self. And after over 5 years as a brand strategist and marketer in big tech, and also becoming a Mind Body Green certified health and wellness coach, my sweet spot is helping you design both a life and work rhythm and a business strategy that your nervous system and your ambition can actually agree on. So together, we co-create sustainable plans for your well-being and your business or your career moves, so you actually act on what you already know you're capable. So if you would like support with your own serious venture, you can book a free 30-minute discovery call with me using the link in the description. But until then, I'll see you in the next video.